the portal system. Okay? Is everybody with me? The remaining two go to the posterior. So they go by way of the axons. Of the 6 that are going to be part of these 8, all right, like I said before, make it or don't. Okay, that's the hypothalamus that is going to go to the anterior. So of those 6, you will see that name associated, releasing or inhibiting. Like I said, releasing, tell the pituitary, make it. Inhibiting, stop, don't do it. Now, do you remember how up here we had growth hormone, releasing hormone? That was one of the 6. What is growth hormone? What comes to your mind when you hear growth hormone? Growth. So when do you think it's available in the body?
It would be the most fun during puberty, I would say.
Okay, and JP kind of got ahead of me here. Now, most of the time, we hear growth hormone, and we think, okay, itty bitty baby is born, they grow up, they reach their full height, boom, we're done growing. Why do I need growth hormone anymore? Right? Right. So here's the thing, though, and think about this for a second, because every time I think about growth hormone now, there's a commercial on TV, and I'm sure you guys have seen it for that product that contains the human growth hormone. I'm a doctor, and I feel that as a female, we really need to have more of this human growth hormone, and I support it with all of my patients. You've seen it, right? You will now. Next time it comes on, you'll be like, oh, that's the one she was talking about. Yes, we need growth hormone all the time. Why?
Cells are constantly dying and regrowing.
We do see that cells in the body have a particular lifespan. And how many of y'all in here ate breakfast this morning? Okay, one of these days I'm going to ask that question, and I'm going to see everybody's hand go up, and I'm going to be so proud, okay, because breakfast is so important. Okay, so that means for those of us who had breakfast, all right, for our body to properly use those nutrients, okay, of the foodstuffs that we took in, we need growth hormone, and guess what else? I mentioned it just a minute ago, talking to my friend. Thyroid. These are 2 hormones that help us metabolize the foodstuffs. So growth hormone, yes, it is something that we need pretty much all the time, okay? It's not really all the time, but definitely after we eat. Now, there is a hormone that is called somatostatin. What is it telling us it's doing to the growth hormone? Inhibiting. In our gut and our liver, the areas that are going to help us utilize the nutrients that we took in and use that growth hormone, for example, well, we have to make sure, for example, in our gut, that the process is not occurring too quickly. We need to make sure that food has time to slow down, that we have the time to actually go in and let that food digest, make its way through the small intestine to the large intestine, and as it does this, okay, we get to absorb the nutrients. If growth hormone and the thyroid hormone, TSH, if it gets too much too fast, the nutrients wouldn't be able to get absorbed easily, okay? We would most likely get rid of them in waste. So this hormone can actually come in and slow that growth hormone or stop it altogether based on what is the status of our digestive system. In doing so, it can also inhibit insulin and glucagon. Do you know what those two help us do?
Process your sugar.
Process the sugars. They help the cells take in and use those sugars. And so the somatostatin, think of it as regulating, okay? It is a hormone that is acting as a regulator to the growth and the thyroid hormone so that our bodies can utilize materials correctly. If it does get to a point where secretion occurs quickly for growth of thyroid, I wish I had written down the name of it. And if the growth hormone and thyroid hormone are not regulated by the somatostatin, they actually promote an unnatural reproduction of cells. What happens when cells of the body are allowed to reproduce out of control? Cancer. So the somatostatin is important. People can actually have a cancer involving the somatostatin itself. I wish I had written down the name of it. Very rare, okay? So somatostatin will help with controlling, I shouldn't say controlling, regulating the growth hormone and the thyroid stimulating. Because when we eat, we are only given a certain amount of food to the body. If it was continued to allow out of control, most likely we wouldn't be able to stop that want of eating. We wouldn't get that feeling of satisfaction and stopping the meal. So somatostatin is one that's working to help regulate growth and thyroid. Now the other two that are found coming from the hypothalamus to the posterior are oxytocin and antidiuretic hormone. Oxytocin, it is the hormone that will act on uterine contractions to make them stronger, make them basically expel the baby from the body. All right? Oxytocin is present, though, in both men and women. All right? It's also known as the love hormone, because when you have met, and you guys know that when you meet your true mate, it's because of their smell, right? Specifically their armpits and another part of their body that I'm not going to mention. Okay? That is how you are truly in love with your mate. And if that's the case, each time you and your mate kiss or have any type of physical connection, oxytocin gets released in your brain. And it increases that feeling of love for that other person. Isn't that cool? So it's in both men and women. The other hormone is anti-diuretic. Let's think about that term. What is a diuretic? What does it do? Yes, and it'll also make you defecate. Okay? So it makes you go to the bathroom. So if this one is anti, what this is telling me, it is trying to get my body, because diuretic, people usually get those because of some type of fluid built up, somewhere on the body. If it's anti, what that's telling me, it wants the body to retain the fluid. Okay? So, the biggest area that hormone is going to act on is the kidneys. So, those are the hormones of my hypothalamus. Now, my anterior pituitary. Well, they just told me that 6 from the hypo make it to the anterior. So now I have 6, okay, that are going to be based on this cellular portion of my anterior pituitary. 2 are termed gonadotropins. Gonads, which are what? Ovaries, testes. So their goal, target those organs. The 2 that we get, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. So that tells me that FSH gets produced by the cells, and they have to make their way to target organs, the ovaries and the testes. And because it is a stimulating hormone, it means that the targets would have to make something. Okay? It's telling them to do something. So, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. Now, if you think about an ovary, okay, and all the cells that are located in the ovary, all right, as those cells progress through meiosis, and what's the goal of meiosis? It's where we go through that the 2 cycles of the cells going through prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase.
So to make another summer replication. Replication.
Well, now the if we look at